First, let's start with this case. My husband and I have two young daughters, ages 2 and 3. Our 3-year-old is suspected to have a developmental condition, and we're currently waiting on an evaluation. While we're not certain yet, everyone involved feels strongly that she shows signs of it. To add to the situation, our 3-year-old also has conjunctivitis right now. Last night during dinner, my husband made a promise to our 3-year-old. He told her she could stay up late since she wouldn't be attending preschool the following day. When I asked him how late he meant, he said 9 p.m., which is significantly past her usual bedtime of 7:30 p.m. I told him I wouldn't handle the fallout from that decision and made it clear that if he wanted her to stay up late, he would need to be the one to get her settled afterward. I took care of getting our 2-year-old to bed and left my husband to manage the situation with our older daughter. While I was tidying up after dinner, I watched him playing with her. By 8 p.m., the tantrums began. She was clearly miserable by the time he tried to get her into the bath at 8:45. Things only got worse. She had a full meltdown both in the bath and afterward while trying to settle down for bed. In an effort to calm her, he ended up giving her a pacifier, even though we've been actively trying to wean her off it. Eventually, he brought her into our bed at 9:45, and she finally fell asleep around 10 p.m. Afterward, my husband told me he was upset with me for not stepping in to help, even though he and our daughter were having such a hard time. I responded by reminding him that I hadn't made the promise to disrupt her routine or let her stay up an hour and a half past her usual bedtime. Despite this, he still feels I should have supported him during the challenging moment. Am I in the wrong for choosing not to help in this situation? Let's start judging. You're not in the wrong. You were extremely clear that he would be doing this solo. He made his choice knowing the consequences it would have. It is not your job to clean up the messes he chooses to make. Is he so checked out of the family that he doesn't realize the impact deviating from routine would have? Honestly, this would bother me on such deep levels. Why are you the default parent? And if you're the default parent, why isn't he talking to you before making commitments he can't keep to your child? If you're not the default parent, why are you expected to swoop in and fix his mistakes? That you warned him would be a mistake, that you shouldn't have had to warn him about in the first place if he were an active parent. You're not in the wrong. You should do this every time he tries to deviate from the routine and rope you into it. You're not in the wrong. Don't try to be the fun parent if you can't back it up and deal with whatever comes with it. You can't pass off dealing with the predictably bad outcome of your actions onto someone else, particularly the exact person who knew it was a bad idea. Also, I would wager you've put your children to bed without help countless times and didn't whinge about it, but happy to be wrong on that. Next up, 6 weeks ago, my wife gave birth to our son. He's healthy and thriving. And while my wife is doing okay physically, she's been emotionally fragile. She's dealing with some anxiety after the birth, and a few mental health challenges she was managing even before her pregnancy have resurfaced due to the postpartum hormonal changes. One issue that's been hard for her is that she couldn't breastfeed. It was a decision she made in her best interest, based on deeply personal reasons. While she doesn't openly discuss those reasons, I'm fully aware of them, and so is her family, who understand her history. Unfortunately, she grew up in a household where breastfeeding was the norm for all the women. While her family has been understanding, my mom and sister are extremely passionate about breastfeeding, almost to a fault. Before my wife gave birth, I specifically warned them not to pressure her or offer unsolicited advice, as breastfeeding wasn't part of her plan. However, they ignored my warning. They brought her information from a breastfeeding group they're part of and told her there was no valid reason for her not to try. This crossed a major line. I immediately asked them to leave our home. The rest of my family was respectful and stayed, but I told my mom and sister that they had overstepped after being explicitly told not to. They were shocked by my reaction and argued that my wife hadn't explained why she couldn't breastfeed. I made it clear that she didn't owe them any explanation. Since then, they've repeatedly asked when they could visit again. I told them they could only return if they committed to respecting this boundary. A few days ago, they set up a group call and expressed that they just wanted to help. I reiterated that the best way they could help was to be supportive of my wife's choices and stop pushing their opinions on her. I firmly told them that their unsolicited advice wasn't needed and wouldn't be helpful in any way. They accused me of being overly harsh and disrespectful, claiming they were only looking out for my wife's and son's best interests. I responded that they weren't helping but instead prioritizing their own beliefs despite my clear warnings. Now they're upset that I spoke so bluntly to them. Am I wrong for setting such a firm boundary and for how I handled this situation? Let's start judging. You're not in the wrong. In fact, you're pretty much my hero. I also was unable to breastfeed. Militant is exactly what those lactation consultants were. My experience is you need really strong boundaries if you are unable or choose not to breastfeed. You're doing a great job caring for your wife. You're not in the wrong. Breastfeeding is such a personal choice. I was all about it until my baby actually came. I didn't even want to try. She was formula fed, she's been healthy, and she's very intelligent. I don't regret not doing it at all. Anyone that gave me any lip about it, I was done with them. Luckily, it was just one doc who shamed me. Found another one, all was well. I couldn't breastfeed. I just had pathetically bad milk supply, and nothing fixed it. I cannot tell you how many women set out to make me feel as bad as humanly possible about that, including one absolutely heinous individual who explained to me that of course all breasts produce milk efficiently. It's what they're designed to do. We both wore glasses, but apparently eyes aren't designed to see efficiently, or maybe tits are the only body part that don't fail. The experience of failing to breastfeed my kids still upsets me, and they're 15 and 17. Protect your wife at all costs. To be clear, if she can't do it mentally, that is exactly the same as not being able to do it physically. I am not overstating it when I say, if your mother and sister nag her about breastfeeding now, that is going to be an open wound in her heart for the rest of her life, and she will never, ever be able to wholly forgive them. Next up, my fiancé, 28, and I, 30, have been together for 3 years. I used to live close to my workplace and relied on public transportation, but after moving into his house, which is hours away from my job, I bought a car. I work as a nurse, and there are no hospitals nearby where I could transfer, so having my own transportation was essential. For the past 2 months, my fiancé's car has been out of commission. It needs costly repairs, and although I offered to help financially, he declined. Instead, he has occasionally borrowed my car for errands, like trips to the supermarket, which I've been okay with as long as it didn't interfere with my work schedule. On New Year's Eve, he asked to use my car to go out with his friends and celebrate. I declined because I had to cover a night shift and needed the car to get to work. He insisted, even suggesting I take the night off or swap shifts, but that wasn't possible on such short notice. I thought he understood and dropped the idea. However, after I went to take a shower, I came out to find both my fiancé and my car gone. I panicked and tried calling him for about half an hour, but he didn't answer. Eventually, one of his friends picked up and confirmed that my fiancé had taken the car to hang out with them. I demanded to speak to my fiancé, but his friend told me my fiancé thought I should skip my shift and that he'd bring the car back later. I was furious. I repeatedly called my fiancé, telling him I hadn't agreed to this and that he needed to return the car immediately. When he still didn't take me seriously, I felt I had no other option but to call the police and report the car as taken without my consent. The police found him and his friends at a bar, and they were brought to the station. I retrieved my car and still managed to make it to my night shift. My fiancé was released hours later, and he flooded my phone with missed calls and texts, furious that I'd gotten him into such a situation. When I got home after my shift, we had a heated argument. He accused me of being unreasonable and petty, saying I had ruined his New Year's celebration and embarrassed him in front of his friends, who are now upset with him. He also claimed I shouldn't have called the police because, according to him, what's yours is mine, and vice versa, so taking the car wasn't theft. I told him that taking my car after I explicitly said no and without my consent was absolutely wrong. He remains upset, giving me the silent treatment and calling me callous for involving the police. While I do believe this was a form of theft since he went behind my back after being told no, he's shocked I'd even imply such a thing and insists I was overreacting. Was I wrong for how I handled this situation? Let's start judging. He got you to move far away from public transport and work opportunities into his house. Refuses to fix his car, so there is now only one between you. Didn't listen to your no. Took your car without permission, endangered your job by forcing you to miss NYE shift, when there is no way you could get cover, yelled at you when he was in the wrong, didn't defend you to his friends, is now giving you the silent treatment. No, you are. You're not in the wrong. But your boyfriend is giving off some warning signs that you should look at very closely before marrying him. You're not in the wrong. Not even a little bit. You moved to where he was, even though it meant a massive commute for you. For what? His convenience? You let him use your car instead of getting his fixed because he couldn't man up and accept help? How dare you? Now this little dog steals your car like a teenager who doesn't understand how being employed works to go out for a rip with his buds, and tells you, don't worry, man, just like, don't go. You're not in the wrong, and I can't believe he did this to you. You clearly said no. He broke your boundaries. Why is he even driving on NYE anyway? He should be Ubering, or if he's DD, then he should be driving his friend's car. Next up, I need a third-party perspective on a tough situation. My girlfriend, Sarah, and I have been living together for 2 years. Sarah has a 16-year-old sister, Tara. Tara still lives with their parents, but their relationship with her is rocky and toxic. Nothing extreme, but it's not healthy either. Over the last 6 months, Tara has started staying over at our apartment more frequently. I've been uncomfortable with this, especially because Sarah, who works from home, often lets Tara skip school and stay with her. Sarah justifies it by saying it's better than Tara being on the streets. But I disagree. My biggest issue is how Tara behaves when she's here. She's openly disrespectful to me and my belongings. She eats my food, even after being repeatedly told not to, and borrows things from the apartment with no intention of returning them. Sarah and I don't understand why Tara doesn't like me, but her behavior toward me feels deliberate. I've tried talking to both Sarah and Tara about this. I've explained that something needs to change, or I'm going to lose my cool. Sarah always promises to address it, but nothing ever changes. Tara is either dismissive or acts like she doesn't care. The situation finally hit a breaking point on Friday. Sarah had left work early, leaving Tara alone in the apartment. When I got home, the place was trashed. That alone was frustrating, but the real issue was that Tara had taken some of my vinyl records to listen to, scratched them beyond repair, and left them lying on the table and floor. When I confronted her about it, she just shrugged and said nothing. I snapped. I told her exactly what I thought, that she was selfish, ungrateful, lazy, and unpleasant. I also made a comment that if this is how she behaves at home, I now understand why her parents don't want her there. That remark made her cry. I told her to leave and not come back. Sarah was furious when she found out. We had a huge fight and things have been tense ever since. She's now talking about moving out, and honestly, I'm considering it too. Last night, Sarah finally told me something she hadn't shared before. Apparently, Tara tried to run away from home last year. Sarah made a deal with her that our apartment could be a safe space whenever Tara needed it, to keep her from running away again. While this new information makes me feel bad, I still don't think it excuses Tara's behavior or what happened. I'm torn. Am I wrong for how I handled this, or was I justified in setting firm boundaries? Let's start judging. You are. You're not in the wrong. Sarah promised her sister your apartment as a safe space without asking you, and Tara's consistent toxicity makes your home an unsafe space for you. Your home has to be a safe space for you and Sarah, first and foremost. Let Sarah move out and take Tara in. Let this relationship go. Sarah makes promises to you she can't keep, Tara treats you like crap, let it go. You were forced into the role of a surrogate parent to a troubled teenager you can't set boundaries with. You won't win this. It'll never end. Sarah is more committed to her sister than to you. It's understandable. The kid has no place to go and no one else. But unless you want to be involved in this mess, you need to get out of it. Best of luck to you. You're not in the wrong. Sarah may think she's being a safe space for her sister, but she isn't. She's enabling Tara to skip school, enabling her to be disrespectful to you and your property, enabling her to bail on even the smallest of responsibilities, like picking up after herself. In short, Sarah is actively harming her sister by watching her decline and doing nothing to help. You're not in the wrong. Sarah's inaction over Tara not treating you, your belongings, or your home with respect is a huge problem. She is clearly disregarding and probably excusing Tara's poor house guest behavior, which is not going to help or prepare Tara to be out on her own eventually. Sarah is not treating you as an equal in the home, and if that continues, then honestly, there's no sense in living together. Ground rules need to be set and enforced if Tara wants to stay with you, and Sarah needs to commit to that fully.